what will happen if Trumpism survives, if Donald Trump thrives, and what that's going to mean for us. When America has a cough, Black America has the flu. When there's smoke in America, Black America is on fire. Historically, that's true, and if we're not careful, it will be true in our lifetimes.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Dr. Wendy Show. Before we get started and I introduce you to our amazing guests, I want to make sure you guys have watched all the previous episodes. So if you have not, make sure to go to our YouTube channel, the Dr. Wendy Show, and catch up on all the past episodes. And while you're there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I want to hear your thoughts, okay? Without further ado, I want to introduce you to my next guest. He is all the things, and we need it, especially this election season. He is a Democratic strategist. He has been on all the major news networks. He's currently a commentator on CBS. He has advised numerous, not one, not two, numerous presidential campaigns, and he's also the CEO and founder of a public relations and political consultancy firm. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome my guest, the one, the only, Antjuan Seawright. Hey!
Happy Monday, Dr. Wendy.
Happy Monday.
I'm glad to be with you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I am so proud to see you doing what you do, and you do it so well. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. And for those who may not know, Antjuan and I have been in the political commentary space together for a while. He supersedes me. He's longer in the tooth. He has much more depth of knowledge when it comes to policy and politics, and that's why you are here. So I'm so honored to have you here today.
Well, we all play a role, and you play such a pivotal role, and you're such a pivotal information source for people who may not subscribe to politics the way I do, or even you do.
Well, thank you. And, you know, my show, we have a segment, and I really want to drill into that segment. That segment is called The Fourth Degree.
Sure.
The Fourth Degree is a homage to me having 4 degrees. You know, I always talk about my 4 degrees. But it also is a play on how when we want information, we have to give it the 4th degree. We can't just let things slide. We have to press out this information. And so I was thinking about going deep into the 2024 election. I was like, okay, I know just the right person. And first thing is, I don't think people know how soon this election is coming up. We talk about 2024 election. People are like, oh, that's months away. But literally the groundwork for that is being laid right now. So for people who don't know, if you can give us a real elementary intro on what the 2024 election landscape looks like right now, meaning the candidates, what is it looking like, what is it shaping up to be, and quite frankly, the importance of it.
Well, let me start with everything is on the ballot. Democracy as we know it hangs in the balance. Freedom as we know it hangs in the balance. Wendy, in fact, the fundamental freedoms we have recently started to unlock and enjoy in this country to some degree as Black folks, it literally is on the ballot. We have a presidential race that's going to suck most of the oxygen in political conversation this year, but on down that ballot are critical races, in my opinion, that have sometimes even more impact on the direct everyday lives that all of us Americans, particularly Black Americans, have to deal with. I like to remind people the closer your government is to you, the more important it is for you. So yes, we have to participate in the presidential election, but governor's races, state legislative races, local prosecutors, sheriff races, dog catcher, you name it, if it's on the ballot, it's important. And the reason why our participation is so important as Black folks, as Black Americans, is because we're 1 or 2 generations away from not having the clean ability to show up and cast our vote without having to count how many marbles in a jar, without having to rehearse certain lines, without knowing how many bubbles are in a piece of bubble gum. Those tests that were put in front of our parents, great-grandparents, and grandparents still, to some degree, are not far away in history. And the fact is, while we sit here and enjoy and talk about the power of elections and the power of our vote, there are people working day and night to erode those fundamental freedoms, like the fundamental freedom to vote, away from us because our vote historically has always had power.
So let me ask you this question, because you harped upon some big things. The first thing is, I always say, and I don't think people understand the importance of local elections. I think local elections to some degree are more important than your federal elections, because local elections will impact you on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
So when people have issues with, let's say, something happens in the school system, for most of us, we're able to vote on who the superintendent is. If you're talking about bail and things like that, you mentioned, those individuals who oversee that are on the ballot. So I think that the media oftentimes gives so much attention on the presidential election and so little attention on the local election. And the truth of the matter is, especially for Black and brown people, local elections interact with your everyday life more. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, just think about this. Think about the mistreatment of African Americans due to law enforcement historically we've seen in this country. Yes, the president and the Congress plays a role in passing laws, but a lot of those things are happening at the local prosecution level. Those people are elected offices. Think about if your trash is not being picked up in your community. You can't call your member of Congress. You have to call your city council person, your county council person, however you describe it, wherever you live. If your son or daughter's in trouble in school or having issues in school, most of us pick up the phone and call our school board member. If your roads is not being fixed or paved or a pothole, you call your state legislative person or your county commissioner, however it lays out where you are. So those roles are so important, and your local tax dollar plays a pivotal role in how these people function and flow within our community. So we cannot ignore the importance of local elections. Now, I'm not saying you have to choose, because I think we have to vote in every election.
That's right.
But we see historically drop off in what they call non-elections or midterm elections, because people put all their eggs in the presidential ballot. And then they're often disappointed when things don't happen at the speed they wanted to, not even knowing that those things don't happen at the federal level, they happen at the local level.
So to emphasize, if you really, really want to see change in your everyday life, you need to make sure you vote at the midterms. You need to make sure you vote at the local level. Because yes, you can reach out to your congressperson, but your first point of contact is the person who is closer to you. So I need y'all to understand that. Because sometimes I think we as citizens put a lot of responsibility on the shoulder of the president. But that's not how it works. Just like in your job, if you have an issue, you don't call the CEO and founder of your company because you have an issue at work. You go to who your direct report is.
That's right.
And for us as citizens, we need to understand our direct reports, so to speak, are the people who we elect locally. So that's really important for you guys. Local elections matter. Now, all the spotlight has been put on the federal election. Everyone's talking about Donald Trump. Everyone's talking about Joe Biden. Do you think Donald Trump will be the candidate for the Republican presidential ticket?
Not only will former President Trump be on the ballot as the nominee and leader of the Republican Party, as he is today, Trumpism will be on the ballot. And let me tell you the ingredients that make up Trumpism: white supremacy, bigotry, hate, Christian white nationalism, the thing we don't talk about enough. Some people call it evangelicalism. All those things that make up Donald Trump and Trumpism, those things will be on the ballot. That's why we as African Americans cannot sit any election out, but in particular this one. I've been guilty in my life as a commentator and as someone who's done a lot of elections. I've been guilty of saying this is the most important election of our lifetime.
I've said that too.
And that's a lie.
Yeah.
Because every election is important. Yeah. However, this by far is the most consequential election of our lifetime, because this election have far more consequences than any of the elections that we've seen in most of our lifetimes. And I have no apologies by saying Black folks are casting a survival vote in this election.
Woo!
We're casting a survival vote in this election. I have no apologies saying that, because if you think about what will happen if Trumpism survives, if Donald Trump thrives and what that's going to mean for us. When America has a cough, Black America has the flu. When there's smoke in America, Black America is on fire. Historically, that's true, and if we're not careful, it will be true in our lifetimes.
That's why I brought you on this show. Because no, seriously. First of all, let's start here. When America has a cough, Black folks have the flu. What I get from that analogy is, if it's bad for America, it's going to be hell for Black people.
Because we were not supposed to be where we are. This country was created with this notion that we were always supposed to be on the menu and never at the table. But because of our constant drumbeat of advocacy, because we've always showed up to vote, and because we voted in our best interests, and because we have not been distracted by misinformation or disinformation, or as we say in South Carolina, lies, we have been able to move the needle and shift the tectonic plates in this country. But as those things have happened, there have been a lot of people slowly, over time, relentlessly trying to erode away at that progress to take us back to a place that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents would probably tremble in their grave if they knew the things we are dealing with today. Same issues, same fight, different players.
So how about Nikki Haley? She is someone that has been touted as a possibility. Do you think that there's a possibility for a Nikki Haley ticket? Do you think that she could make movement, or is she just smoke and mirrors, for lack of a better word, to try to distract Americans from what is really ahead? Well,
let's start with the former governor not walking in her truth. She's the one who said the Civil War was about states' rights. We all know it was about slavery. She's the one who cuddled and played footsie with Trump and Trumpism when she had her last job as the UN ambassador. And as a result, she is part of the reason this MAGA movement has gotten legs and has gotten depth and width. And now, all of a sudden, she wants to wear this political reversible jersey. I'm MAGA when it's convenient, but I'm also an alternative to moderate Republicanism, whatever that means in 2024. And that's not work. The voters, that's not working. The voters have rejected that in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. And I think they have overall said, why do we want a replica when we can have the real thing? And make no mistake, Trump is just a tool that's being used to push an agenda and an effort that people are hungry and thirsty for in this country. That's what makes me nervous about this election. I hear folks all the time that say, well, we survived 4 years of Trump. It wasn't that bad. I don't think people understand what another 4 years of Trump will mean for our community in particular.
It'll completely dismantle so many things. So talk about that. Because I think that, if I could be honest with you, there's a segment of Black Americans who do feel as though we survived 4 years of Trump, who do feel as though they got these checks in the mail, Trump gave them money, who do feel as though, when we were under Trump, life was better. Talk about that.
Well, let's start with most of that is not true.
That's right.
Let's start there. And I think we have to be anchored in truth. Second of all, our grandparents and great-grandparents survived Jim Crow. But his nieces and nephews are alive and well. And that's what we're having to wrestle with. So yes, we may have survived, but we did not thrive. And the fact of the matter is we survived because it was a 2-year stunt in which we showed back up in the midterm elections and we pumped the brakes on Trumpism to a certain degree. And think about what 4 years of Donald Trump, he called a Black woman a dog looking into a camera. He talked about African countries being shithole countries.
He called Nigeria a shithole country.
This is a man who started a movement for president by saying Barack Obama was not a Black man, was not even a U.S. citizen, called for the Central Park Five to be hung, essentially, to be killed. And so we all know what comes along with Donald Trump. Charlottesville, good people on both sides. All those things. And so, it may not have impacted you then, but the consequences of Trumpism and Trump now are very, very scary for me.
So what is at stake in the 2024 election? You said, and I thought you crystallized it, you said no, it may not be the most important election, but it will be the most consequential election. So what exactly is at stake? What exactly is on the ballot? You mentioned everything is on the ballot. Can you highlight some of the important things that come to mind to just let people know out there, this is why we're stressing the importance of this election?
Well, let's talk about what's at stake for the most powerful and loyal and dedicated voting bloc in this country's history, and that's black voters.
Okay.
You think about what Joe Biden and our first African-American vice president, Kamala Harris, have done, and Democrats, when we have power, have done since they've taken office. $7 billion into historical black colleges and universities, $40 billion in rental assistance for those who needed it at the time, $1.9 trillion went into pandemic relief during one of the worst health crisis in this nation's history, the worst financial times in this nation's history. We hear black Americans talk about Trump gave us checks. It was Joe Biden who cut child poverty in half, including black child poverty in half, and some families received up to $7,500 a month until the Republicans said we're not going to do the child tax credit anymore. We dipped the price of insulin to $35 a month. We all know how diabetes impacts black Americans. We struck a blow to the climate crisis, more money towards the climate crisis in the history of this world. We started making things again at home by way of legislation. We know what we did, the first gun safety legislation in this country. We now know that in the number of African Americans that have health insurance is at an all-time high. We know that black unemployment rate was low, 14 million jobs created. We know that black entrepreneurship is at an all-time high, and we've closed the black wealth gap to the lowest it's been in 20 years. I can go on and on and on about what this president and this vice president has done for us. But now we have to make certain that we secure those things, because at the same way we've made all this progress, it literally is on the ballot, because they have already said they want to roll back the clock and take those things away. And so, look, I get it. Not everyone is feeling the joy of Joe Biden. Not everyone is feeling the sacrifices of Kamala Harris. There are people frustrated, angry, and confused.
So what do you say to those people?
Alternative to that is what makes me stay up at night. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm traveling this country, all over this country, to talk to everybody in this country. Because what I worry about is the long-term impact that Trump and Trumpism will have for our community.
So you listed all of these things.
And that's not even all. That's not an exhaustive list.
But that's my point. My point is you listed all of these things, and most of those things people don't know about.
That's true.
I recently saw a post by the rapper Plies, and he said, Biden and Harris need some rapper friends, because they need talk, for the lack of a bad word. They need talk their shit. People don't know what you're doing. You're just there. People don't know what you're doing because you guys are not telling the world, or you're not tooting your horn. And then on top of that, something that has really been at the forefront of people's minds has been that of student loan debt.
Look, Wendy, I didn't even touch on that. Look.
Well, touch on it because the people want to know. Because at this point,
3.7 Americans, I think the number is somewhere around almost $4 billion in student loan relief. And for every 2 months from this point on, 50,000 Americans will receive student loan debt relief. No president in this nation's history has dealt with the student loan crisis other than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And you think about who has benefited more from the student loan debt relief. So many people focus on what the Supreme Court ruled. This right-wing activist court ruled. And by the way, we have a right-wing activist court because some of us did not show up in 2016 to vote for the Democratic candidate. And now we're wondering why DEI, student loans, and all these other things are under attack. So that's going to happen. When the student loan piece is happening. If we don't show back up and secure our place and keep showing up, the other side, Trump and his disciples, will take that away.
Two things. Why don't you think people showed up in the 2018? No, my math is
2016.
No, 2016.
2016, Hillary Clinton.
Why don't you think people showed up to the 2016 election?
People were distracted. The misinformation and the disinformation, the same things we're seeing now from people who may have a platform, who may have their own agenda, who may not agree with everything that some of our leaders in the Democratic Party are doing, and they create these wedges. And so they make people think that because things have not happened in 3 years that we've been dealing with for 200 plus years, that automatically these people are not doing what's in our best interest. So that was part of it. People voted third party. Some people did not vote at all. And some people, in my opinion, wasted their vote. The same challenges exist in this election.
Look, I'm going to call out some people. You don't have to, but I want to. And these are people that I have personally had conversations with. There are people who have platforms, who utilize their platforms, and they utilize their platform, but they utilize their platform and it causes misinformation.
That's right.
Charlemagne the God. And I've met Charlemagne. We've had conversations. But I do think that there's misinformation coming out. I think that it turns into barbershop talk. And it's not rooted in facts.
Elections have consequences. They're generational consequences for us. And look, we don't always have to agree. But here's what I know. The disagreements we may appear to have amongst each other do not compare to the differences we have with the other side. Now, look, you mentioned Charlemagne. He said he's not encouraging people to vote for Trump. I think there's a large segment of the population who's probably politically unhoused right now. So we have to give them a reason to vote for Joe Biden. But if we use influencers, if we use people who have a platform, if we have disciples, if we have ambassadors for the messaging points that I just mentioned and so many others that I did not mention, I'm convinced you compare that to what any other candidate outside of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris wants to offer. I'm convinced black people will understand why it's important to not only cast their vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but cast their vote on down the ballot for Democrats.
Well, I just want to say this. I think it's really important for our viewers to know that a key takeaway for me, and I hope for some of our viewers, is that just because someone has a blue check mark or just because someone has a large following or large followers doesn't make what they say on a certain topic Bible. You also have to know that oftentimes people with blue check marks and or a large following, they speak from opinion. And they have a right to their opinion, but it doesn't make their opinion rooted in knowledge or facts.
And because of that same reason, we have to apply the old Southern Carpenter's rule when we're inhaling information: measure 3 times, cut once. And the fact of the matter is, all the things I just mentioned to you, they're non-debatable facts. That's why I will look anybody in their face. In any camera, I will look into that camera and say, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been the most consequential duo, legislative-wise, for black Americans than any other duo in the history of this country. And all you have to do is look at the policy agenda, the things we've always judged presidential and vice presidential leaders by. You look at what they've done. Now, true, we may not feel all those things today, but if we think about what the implementation will look like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 40 years from now, history will look back and say, wow, they've done all this in 3 years.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. And I don't want this to be push Joe Biden or push Kamala Harris narrative in the sense of I want people to make informed decisions.
Listen, I want them to be informed voters. I want people to be empowered with information because I know our people history. We've always been pro-value, anti-institution. So take the Democratic label out of this. Take my job or my role as a Dem strategist out of it. Just look at the basic information that's presented with fact. And it's all Googleable on .gov websites, not these .com or .co websites, .gov. All you have to do is look at the facts, and you will be able to see for yourself everything I'm saying is the good gospel of the truth.
Okay, if you say so. What are your 2024 predictions?
My 2024 predictions is that our people, the African seed and the American son and daughter, will once again do what we're supposed to do and shift the tectonic plates in this country and help restore history by making Kamala Harris a 2-term black woman vice president, first time in our nation's history, and will help to make certain that the Biden-Harris agenda that's been started will continue, and to make certain that my friend and my good brother friend, Hakeem Jeffries, will be the first black speaker in these United States of America.
Okay. Do you think Trump will win the 2024 election?
I think the former president and Trumpism, of course, has an ability to win this election. It's going to be a very close election. That's why every vote counts. That's why all of our participation matters. And so we can't take for granted, and we can't think just because a few people dislike Trump that will prevail, that will be the order of the day. We have to vote against Trump, and we have to also vote for Joe Biden. And whatever you choose in between that, I think, whatever your reason, I think it's important to show up and vote your own interests.
So I have this game called 10 would win.
Yeah.
But we're not going to play that because I think that this is important. So I want us to actually truncate that. And I want you to give me 3 takeaways that you want everyday Americans to know going into 2024.
The power of the black vote is the unified black vote. It's black men and black women. We can't let these outside influences divide our community and our vote. When we've made progress in this country as black folks, it's been the collective power of the black vote. I want them to know that. I also want them to know that the stakes for this election are much higher than they have been even when Barack Obama was running for re-election. And I want people to know that it's going to be, yes, we're going to play a critical role. But truly, if we care about the future of our country and for our community, we'll show up regardless of what anyone may try to tell us who has a blue check mark. Thirdly, I want the world to know that black people, yes, we always bear the responsibility and the power of our vote share. But it's going to take Lottie Dottie and everybody to show up to this voting party. So black folks play a role, women play a role, Latinos play a role, the AAPI plays a role, and every other constituency that may fall under the American umbrella will play a role in being on the right side of history.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Make sure you not only go out to vote, make sure you register to vote. And when you register to vote, take at least 2 or 3 people with you, because it's going to take the whole community in order for us to make a change in our community. Antjuan Seawright.
Dr. Wendy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.